Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into 5 players who I believe are going to end up as busts for the 2023 fantasy football season. But before we can go in depth into each of these players, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. So without further ado, let's get into my 5 busts for the 2023 fantasy football season. We begin at number 1, the player getting drafted earliest in fantasy football drafts right now. That is Kenneth Walker, running back of the Seattle Seahawks, current underdog ADP, running back 15 at pick 48.5. Now, while on underdog best ball drafts, he is most of the time a 4th or 5th round pick. I have noticed that when doing mock drafts, a lot of the time, Kenneth Walker comes off the board in the 2nd round or in the 3rd round, and to be honest with you, that seems egregiously high. The Seahawks just drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round of the 2023 NFL Draft, and Pete Carroll, head coach of the Seattle Seahawks, has made it very clear that it is going to be a battle for the number 1 running back role between Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Now, Kenneth Walker was drafted in the 2022 NFL Draft, and he had a very good rookie year. And while you might have forgot which round he was drafted in, he was also drafted in the 2nd round. So these are 2 second-round running backs battling for the number 1 role. So it's not like Pete Carroll has some sort of reason, like he might have if Kenneth Walker was a 1st-round pick, to really push Walker out there if he thinks Zach Charbonnet is a better running back than him. Kenneth Walker, like I said, he was really good last year. Running back 16.5 PPR in the season, running back 14.5 PPR points per game, tied with Ramondre Stevenson of the Patriots. He played in 15 games, but he only had 11 starts because if you remember back to last year, Rashad Penny was the starting running back until he got hurt. 228 carries, 15.2 per game, ranking 11th at running back, 1,051 rushing yards, 70.1 per game, 11th. 35 targets, 2.3 per game, 34th. 27 receptions, 1.8 per game, 33rd. 165 receiving yards, 11 per game, 42nd. And 9 total touchdowns, 14th at running back. So a great year for the Seattle Seahawks offense as a whole, and a great year for Kenneth Walker III, Sir Kenneth Walker, in his rookie season. But again, the problem does not lie with Kenneth Walker's talent, because you could say that Kenneth Walker is a very good running back. He's a very talented running back. The problem lies with the fact that they drafted a running back in the 2nd round. Look, if they drafted one of those late round guys, or if they picked up an undrafted free agent rookie running back, then you can go ahead and push this argument to the side. But the facts are the facts, and Kenneth Walker's potential replacement was drafted in the 2nd round. They wanted to bring competition in for Kenneth Walker. Last year, Kenneth Walker had negative 28.3 expected points added, 148th at running back, which tells you that while Walker was good, he was very replaceable, and a running back like Zach Charbonnet could step into this system and play really well. Now, my real big worry with just going all out, full on Michael Jordan fade away, full fade on Kenneth Walker is his talent, because again, I think he is incredibly skilled. But I don't want to dismiss the fact that they drafted Zach Charbonnet in the 2nd round, and I think this could be a true 50-50 split, or maybe 60-40 in favor of Kenneth Walker, which would highly devalue him, because last year, once Penny got hurt, Kenneth Walker was the workhorse back on the team. So again, I'm not here trying to poo-poo all over Kenneth Walker's name, because I think he's a talented player. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you can pay top 4-round draft capital in a fantasy football draft for a running back that you don't even know for certain will be the running back 1 in week 1, and you definitely don't know halfway through the season things could change for the Seahawks. I just simply can't do it. I get the argument that he's talented, but Zach Charbonnet throws a real wrench into this situation. My number 2 bust is going to be DeAndre Hopkins of the Arizona Cardinals, current underdog ADP wide receiver 21 at pick 44.4. Last year, he did only play in 9 games, finishing as the wide receiver 47 in half PPR, but he was the wide receiver 11 in half PPR points per game. So while DeAndre Hopkins isn't necessarily this spring chicken anymore, right? He's not 23 fucking years old on the Houston Texans anymore. He's also not ancient at this point, right? 9 games played, 96 targets, 10.7 per game, 35th. 64 receptions, 7.1 per game, 34th. 717 receiving yards, 79.7 per game, 41st. Only 3 touchdowns, 50th at wide receiver. But we all know that the touchdown number could be a roller coaster ride from a year-to-year perspective, right? 1 year, D-Hop might score 3 touchdowns. If things roll slightly differently, the motherfucker could have scored 10 touchdowns, right? We all know how that works. So the fact that he scored 3 touchdowns won't be used against him. And to be honest with you, nothing about what DeAndre Hopkins did last year tells me that this guy is magically going to come to a halt in 2023 in terms of his efficiency or in terms of his skill set. He had a 51.8% route win rate last season, 4th at wide receiver, 47% win rate versus man, 2nd, 34.1% dominator rating, 6th. This guy is the clear alpha dog, the wide receiver 1 on the Arizona Cardinals. The problem lies with Kyler Murray. What happens if Kyler Murray misses, let's say, 6 to 7 games, right? And then what happens if Kyler Murray gets shut down because they have, for instance, they have 1 win, 6 games in. It's like, oh, Kyler's ready to come back. This team has 1 win. They might have 0 wins. The Arizona Cardinals, on paper, have one of the worst, if not the worst, roster in the National Football League. So personally, I am not willing to pull the trigger on a wide receiver on a team that is going to have Colt McCoy as their quarterback number 1. Now I know Kyler's looming in the background, but if this team really is as bad as I think they could be, there's reason to believe that with a new head coach they just brought in from the Eagles to Arizona, why would you force Kyler back if the team is dead in the water? There's no reason to. The quarterback situation really concerns me with D-Hop. Now, could DeAndre Hopkins still finish as like a top 24 guy? Definitely. He definitely could because he's so good at points. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball, right? DeAndre Hopkins has succeeded in Houston with Tom Savage throwing him the ball, right? Brock Osweiler, all of these garbage can quarterbacks in Houston, DeAndre Hopkins still succeeded. The problem is when I am drafting a wide receiver at wide receiver 21, my deep down hope is that while their ADP isn't top 12, they have that top 12 upside. And frankly, with how bad the Cardinals might be, with the quarterback play being so shit, I just don't think that D-Hop is going to be able to do that. So again, while I think he's a great player, while I don't think he's going to fall off the edge of the earth like Christopher Columbus believed when he sailed too far, right? They thought they'd fall off the edge of the earth, which was a little bit crazy. But I don't think that's going to happen. I just think that the team's going to be so bad. Sure, there's the positive throwing narrative at the end of the game. Maybe D-Hop just, it doesn't matter that the team sucks. He gets 10 targets a game. He catches 6 balls, and he somehow finishes top 12. It wouldn't shock me due to how good he is. But at current ADP, it feels disgusting to draft DeAndre Hopkins. It just does. I've done a bunch of drafts already. I think I've only drafted him once. It doesn't feel exciting. There's so much more youth. There's so much more upside going around him at the wide receiver position. I just don't want to be drafting him. At number 3, we move to JSN, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, current underdog ADP, wide receiver 30 at pick 59.3. If you guys have ended up enjoying this video thus far, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below as well as hitting that like button. It would help me out a ton. So JSN going into the 2023 NFL draft looked as though he was the best wide receiver talent. Now, he didn't play much in 2022 in college at The Ohio State University. He only played in 3 games due to injuries, but this man was fantastic in 2021. This guy's tape is amazing. You throw it on, and it's beautiful, right? It's like seeing a rainbow for the first time. Double rainbow all the way across the sky, like that old YouTube video, right? 13 games played in 2021. 95 receptions on 112 targets, 1,606 yards, 84.8% catch rate, 22.7% target share in a great Ohio State offense, and 9 total touchdowns. So again, we have another situation. Kenneth Walker, the guy's incredibly talented, but the competition is scary on the Seahawks. DeAndre Hopkins, the guy is good. There might be a slight fall off, but the team around him is gross. The quarterback situation is gross. With Jaxon Smith-Njigba, it's another situation where the competition is very, very scary. Now, if you're in a dynasty league, I still think JSN is a very sought-upon commodity. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is very talented. He's a very good player. And I think his rookie year might be a little riddled with spike weeks. I think there's not going to be much consistency that we can find out of JSN, barring injury. I get it in best ball drafts. Feels a little early, pick 59.3, but I get it. Because in best ball, you are hunting for the spike weeks. JSN is so incredibly talented that he has those 25, 30-plus point games in his arsenal. He does, especially with how good the Seahawks looked last year, and we are assuming that Geno Smith is not going to fall off the edge of the earth, which kind of scares me a little bit because I don't think Geno Smith is very good. But hey, we'll throw that behind us. We will think positively about Geno and the Seahawks offense. Jaxon Smith-Njigba is competing with one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in DK Metcalf. An absolute Greek god, like if you've ever seen those statues where it's the Greek god, they might have tiny cocks, but they're shredded. These shredded dudes, they look like they're built in a lab. That's what DK Metcalf looks like, right? Shredded, built out of stone, etched out of stone, right? Very talented, and for his weight, his size, the guy is incredibly fast, like Sonic the fucking Hedgehog, okay? Then you got Lockett. Lockett in my pocket. The guy's a little bit old. He's getting older. He's not the biggest, but he's got the speed. He's got the hands. He's got the moves, right? His route running is excellent, in my opinion. So, where does JSN slot in there? A year from now? Lockett might be gone. He could be the wide receiver too. Or the 1B. But when we're looking at it for 2023, it's hard to say that JSN is going to be able to eclipse a guy like Lockett or Metcalf without injury, especially with the fact that I'm a little worried about Geno. You got a lot of mouths to feed in Seattle. You got Walker, right? We just talked about Kenneth Walker. You got Zach Charbonnet. You got JSN. You got Metcalf. You got Lockett. Noah Fant is still there, but let's be honest with you, Noah Fant isn't going to be sucking in targets. So, JSN, while this talented player, while this great prospect out of college, when we're looking at just a year one kind of thought process, in his rookie year, maybe he catches fire towards the end. He's going to have those spike games. But I think on a week-to-week basis, do you really want to be throwing JSN in your lineup all the time, right? If you draft a running back in the first round, or maybe you go 2 running backs early, Jaxon Smith-Njigba should not be your wide receiver 2. He's too unreliable for that. I like Lockett and Metcalf more than him for this rookie year. So again, I'm not trying to shit on JSN. I think he's a great player, but I think in terms of redraft, we're kind of expecting the best in a situation that is very, very crowded. Moving to player number 4, we got Alvin Kamara of the New Orleans Saints, underdog ADP, running back 31 at pick 99.2. Now, right now, Alvin Kamara has had nothing thrown at him. The book has not been thrown at him. He is not yet suspended. But based upon everything that I've read, looked at from lawyers, it seems like they're going to give him 4 to 8 game suspension. 4 games, you can bake that into the draft pick, make the pick, and not feel disgusting about it. But what happens if it's 6, 7, 8 games? When they draft Kendre Miller, who I've talked about already, And they bring in Jamal with 2 A's Williams, the touchdown vulture from the Detroit Lions, also formerly of the Packers. This is a gross situation. The Saints bring in Derek Carr, who, while is an upgrade from whatever the fuck you want to call that quarterback room last year, it's not a huge upgrade, right? It's not. It's, I guess, better than Taysom Hill playing quarterback, but you get what I mean. And Taysom Hill also steals running back opportunities, right? Alvin Kamara is good. He's really good. There's a reason why, for the last couple of years, he's been a first or second round pick, right? He's got the pass catching skills. And pass catching is so important in fantasy football. He's one of the few guys where if they got 100 targets in the season, you're not batting the eye just because they're a running back. You're not surprised at all, right? He's got that crazy athleticism. He can move incredibly well. He cuts well. He's great. But the problem comes when you understand that it's very likely, in my opinion, that he gets suspended. If he somehow doesn't get suspended at all, and it's week 1, and you got Alvin Kamara at pick 99.2, you're laughing straight to the fucking bank. Because even with the competition, Kamara's going to be the guy week 1, and it's going to be hard for those guys to eclipse him as the guy. But I think, based upon there potentially being a suspension, what happens if we are now in week 5, for instance, when Kamara comes back? What happens if Miller's playing well and so is Jamal Williams? Is Alvin Kamara going to be given the same role he's had in the past? Or are they going to maybe back it up a little bit, right? Reduce his workload. And if they do that, this is not a guy that's getting fucking 20 carries a game, right? I think he might fall down to like 10 carries a game. He was at 14.9 last season playing in 15 games, 223 carries, 12th at running back, 898 rushing yards, 59.9 per game, 19th at running back, 77 targets, 5.1 per game, 5th at running back, 57 receptions, 3.8 per game, 7th, 490 receiving yards, 32.7, 5th, and 4 total touchdowns, 41st. This idea of Kamara being a bust is even more of a glaring issue, right? Him missing these games is a huge issue in leagues where you can't put a suspended player in your IR or your league does not offer IR. Because if this motherfucker's missing 6 games, he is burning a hole in your bench. Now, I get why you might hold him, because you have these high hopes, right? Kamara, this guy that's finished so highly, this guy that succeeded with Mark Ingram with him, right? They were both, I believe, top 12 backs back in 2017 or 16, whatever that was, right? Kamara is very talented, but you don't want to be holding on to these guys on your roster for 6, 7, 8 games. And again, right now, it's hard to make a full-on argument because we don't know what the suspension is going to be. But again, I would be perplexed. I would be in complete and utter shock if this guy plays every game next season. Wasn't as effective last year. Let's be honest. 4.0 true yards per carry, 46th. 5.0 yards per touch, 25th. 861 yards created, 57.4 per game, 9th. Again, should the Saints offense be better than last year? Yes. The Saints division is so fucking bad, they might even win the division, right? The Bucs are having Baker Mayfield play quarterback, right? The Falcons got Desmond Ridder. The Panthers, they got Bryce Young, so maybe they'll be better. But look, Kamara's a great player. But with the suspension looming, with him not looking as good last year, in my opinion, if you had him last year, you probably would have remembered, like, oh, there were some really bad stretches for Kamara. Taysom Hill's still there, with them bringing in Miller, bringing in Jamal Williams. It just seems like a situation you want to steer clear of. Final player to talk about, we're jumping back in the Cardinals. Well, Kyler Murray, quarterback of the Arizona Cardinals, current ADP on Underdog, quarterback 19, pick 141.1, quarterback 18 last year, only played 11 games. He was quarterback 9 in points per game. Pretty disappointing last year, I will add. Even if you kind of just take away the injury, I thought he had like top 3 quarterback potential. I think he still does, but he was only quarterback 9. 11 games played in 2022. He hurt his hamstring in week 9. It was a hammy strain, and he tore his ACL and meniscus in week 14. Now, I will note, there are some players like Breece Hall. They get hurt earlier on in the season. I feel confident, hey, Javonte Williams, a few weeks in the season, they'll be good, right? Kyler got hurt right at the end of the season, close to the end of the season, week 14. That doesn't bode well towards him being healthy for week 1. And again, like I said, we might be in week 6, 7, time for Kyler to come back, and the Cardinals don't even have a win. They're not eating any W's, Jameis Winston style, right? And then you're sitting there, drafted him, can't hold him. Maybe your league doesn't have an R. Again, in any league that doesn't have an R spot, if you're drafting Kyler Murray, you're crazy. You're crazy because you're just burning a spot on your bench. What happens if he doesn't come back? What happens if he rushes himself back, doesn't play as well? Now, I hate Cliff Kingsbury, but what happens if this new offense is a little limp dick early on in Arizona with a more defensive-minded head coach, right? See that happening. Now, again, his stats are okay. 390 pass attempts, 35.5 per game, 20th. 259 completions, 23.5 per game, 19th. 2,368 passing yards, 215.3 per game, 25th. 14 passing touchdowns at a 3.6% rate. Real quick to explain quarterback passing touchdown rate. If it's around the number 5, that's good. If you throw 5.9, means you're probably going to go back down, closer to 5. If you throw 3.6 and you're a garbage player, it's probably not going to go much higher. But if you're Kyler, you expect it to go higher because I think Kyler's a good player. But I don't even think any of his stats are super important in this argument. I'm going to read them all off. But I think what I'm kind of arguing here for him to be a bust is because of the injury, right? 23rd at quarterback, 7 interceptions, 24th, 67 carries, 9th, 418 rushing yards, 7th, and 3 rushing tugs, 9th. 8.2% accuracy rating, or 8.2 accuracy rating, 2nd at quarterback via Player Profiler. 75.3% true completion rate, also Player Profiler, 2nd. 52.1 QBR, 19th. I don't really care too much about QBR. Some of the stat nerds might care. So I bring it up. Again, if Kyler tore his ACL in week 3 last year, he sucked because he was hurt, boom, you just run it back 2023 with the thoughts that Kyler still has all that skill. There's also a worry of mine that Kyler tore his ACL and his meniscus is now maybe a little scared to run next season. Now, he's still going to run, but not run as much. And we've talked about this in the past with guys like Joe Burrow, who have a little bit of rushing upside, right? Kyler has huge rushing upside. So now you're stripping away a part of his game, potentially. And the guy, 6 weeks in the season, might not be ready, and they might just put him on ice, bench him. So again, while I like the player Kyler, the situation is very gloomy right now. So thank you guys all so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this list. There are definitely people that I've already seen, a very vocal group in the comments that loves Kenneth Walker. And again, I get it. The skill's there. But I don't know how I can pay that much draft capital. How I could put that high of a pick on a guy where they drafted a running back in the 2nd round, the exact same round Walker was drafted just a year ago. How can you do that? When Zach Charbonnet is free in drafts later on. D-Hop, JSN, Kamara, Kyler, what do you think in the comments section? I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, goodbye. Hit that like button, subscribe button. Goodbye.